You ever wonder where old warships go to die? Not like a heroic blaze of glory sailing into the sunset. Nope. Turns out most of them just sit quietly in the middle of nowhere, rotting, rusting, and completely forgotten. And no, this isn't some creepy scene out of a post-apocalyptic movie. It's real, it's American, and it's a lot weirder than you'd think. Welcome to the Suisun Bay Reserve Fleet, also known as the Ghost Fleet. A stretch of California waters that looks like it was built for a Michael Bay film, except the explosions never came. Just corrosion and seagulls. About 30 miles northeast of San Francisco, there's a place where dozens of US Navy ships are anchored in rows, like perfectly lined up. Steel giants, retired, floating in silence. It's not exactly top secret, but it sure feels like something they don't want you poking around. This is the Suisun Bay Reserve Fleet, tucked away in a shallow part of the Sacramento River Delta. It's been here since 1946, and at one point, there were over 400 ships just chilling in the water, waiting for their next mission, their next war, or their final scrapping. Most people in California don't even know it exists. Drive past it, and it just looks like the ocean doing ocean things, but if you look closer, you'll see the silhouettes of ships that once launched into battle, carried troops, and patrolled the world's most dangerous waters. Okay, so here's the thing. After World War II, the US Navy found itself with a bit of a storage problem. Too many ships, not enough wars, and you can't just sell these things on Craigslist. So the government came up with a plan. Let's store them, just in case. You know, break glass in case of war kind of deal. They called it the National Defense Reserve Fleet. The idea? If a conflict broke out or we needed ships fast, we could reactivate these vessels and send them back out. Smart, right? Well, in theory. Some of these ships did get pulled back into action during the Korean War and even Vietnam, but most, they just sat and sat and sat for decades in salt water, which, in case you didn't know, is like a slow death sentence for metal. This isn't just a pile of scrap. These ships have stories. There was the USS Iowa, a battleship that served in World War II, Korea, and carried Roosevelt across the Atlantic. Or the Glomar Explorer, a CIA-engineered ship built for deep-sea espionage during the Cold War. Seriously. Then you've got Liberty ships, built in just 42 days during wartime. We're talking peak American, get-it-done energy. Some vessels carried nuclear weapons, others transported tanks. A few were floating hospitals. Imagine the secrets those metal walls heard. Then picture them sitting in dead silence, slowly rusting for 70-plus years. It's like the ghost of military past just floating off the coast of California. You might be thinking, wait, this sounds unsafe? You'd be right. By the early 2000s, most of the ships had become giant environmental nightmares. Paint peeling off into the water. Oil leaking from tanks that hadn't been touched in decades. And the lead? Don't even get started. One environmental group described Suisun Bay as a floating toxic dump. At one point, it was releasing more than 20 tons of heavy metals into the water every year. And let me tell you, California doesn't love that. After years of lawsuits and environmental pressure, the federal government agreed to clean it up. By 2010, they were finally like, okay, fine, let's scrap these ships before they poison everything. The removal process began. Ships were scrubbed, cleaned, and towed out, either to be dismantled or turned into museums, but not all of them. Nope, a few still remain, haunting the waters like rusting skeletons. Here's where things get weird. Because for such a massive operation, like whole warships just parked in a bay, there's very little public interest. Almost no one talks about it. It doesn't show up on tourist maps. And unless you're a ship nerd or an environmental journalist, you've probably never even heard of it. There's something almost deliberate about how low-key this is. No flashy signs, no gift shops, no welcome to the ship graveyard photo ops. You can't even visit it by foot. To see it, you basically have to go out on a boat or hover awkwardly with a drone. And when you do, it feels off. Like you're trespassing on the ghosts of America's war machine. By the way, Suisun Bay isn't alone. The US has a few of these ghost fleets. There's another in Beaumont, Texas, and one in James River, Virginia. But Suisun? It's the creepiest, the most forgotten, and arguably the most visually haunting. The others have been cleaned up or more closely monitored. Suisun just lingered, rotting in plain sight. The US Navy doesn't keep ships this way anymore. We've moved on to more advanced storage. And honestly, we're scrapping more than we're saving now. It's expensive to store rust, even more expensive to clean it up. By the end of the 2010s, most of Suisun's ships were gone. The big guys, scrapped or sold. The weird ones, turned into museum exhibits. The rest, dismantled quietly, piece by piece. But a handful still sit out there. A final handful. Too expensive to clean. Too old to save. Just waiting. Here's the funny part. No one's really sure. There's no massive campaign to turn this into a historical site. No real plan to open it to the public. No Netflix documentary in the works that we know of. These ships will likely fade away, just like the generations who served on them, which is kinda sad, because they weren't just metal hulls and engine parts. They were moving cities, packed with people, with stories, with tension, boredom, camaraderie, fear, and sometimes glory. Now, they're ghost ships. You can walk through a city like Washington, D.C. and see monuments for days. But out here, in the shallow waters of a quiet bay in California, is a floating graveyard of American ambition. It's not glamorous, it's not polished, but it's real. And in a weird way, it tells a bigger story. Not just about war and peace, but about how we move on and how fast we forget. Because the next time you're out near San Francisco and look toward the water, you might see a faint shape on the horizon. Not a cloud, not a boat, but a forgotten piece of history, quietly rusting under the California sun. And trust me, it's worth remembering. Want more weird American secrets like this? You know what to do. Hit that follow. Or don't. But then you'll miss out on stuff like the fake suburbs we built in the desert, and the town that's been sinking since 1982.